I think it's pretty safe to say that I like manga. Today, I'm gonna be going through my manga collection. Admittedly, it's really not that much compared to, say, other YouTubers on this platform. I've loved manga and I've loved reading manga since I was maybe 11 or 12, and I guess we'll get to that as we go through my collection. It's definitely something I consume frequently and a lot. This isn't gonna be a guide to manga. I just kind of want to go over what I own physically in terms of manga today, talk about them each one by one. Everything's unscripted. So you get to finally see that side of me as well. We're not gonna go over any special anime art books or special magazines that I own. I'm just gonna be purely talking about manga. Up on screen right now are the art books that I do own. Let's start at the very beginning, all the way at the end here. Let me just move these books. Sorry, manga, not books, not books. Manga. Manga. How do you guys pronounce that? I alternate. Let's start at the beginning of my manga collecting journey, and then maybe we can work chronologically. I don't know. Let's see how I feel. So, One Piece. As you can see, lots and lots of volumes. I have volume 1 all the way up to volume 36. So that is basically from, well, obviously from the very beginning to about the first quarter of Water 7. Before this, I had never really experienced what I would consider true anime. I was about 11, and the only piece of Japanese media I had ever experienced up until that point was probably, honestly, Bakugan and Ben 10 and Dora. I got this very, very exact volume that I'm holding in my hands when I was, again, 11. My dad had just come back from a work trip, funny enough from the US, out of all places, the US, and he saw this in a bookshop in his downtime. And he got it for me, and he was like, I think you'd like this, because at the time I was very much into drawing. So he got this for me. And yeah, first piece of real Japanese media, what I would consider real, true Japanese media. And, you know, I fell in love with it. I finished the first volume. I finished it within 45 minutes of picking it up. And I wanted more and more and more. At the time, I didn't know that you could just read it online for free. Maybe not in the most legal way, but you could read it online for free. I did not know about that. I was 11. Give me a break. But I wanted more. And so the next time my dad went on a work trip, I asked him, can you pick up, or is it possible if you could get more volumes of this weird little interesting series about pirates? And he was like, yeah, okay, I'll try find volume 2, maybe free for you if I can. He went off to his work trip, and he ended up finding this omnibus of 13, 14, and 15, which is kind of near the beginning of Baroque works. This exact volume, I've read this more than any other volume that I have in my collection. As you can probably see, this exact volume, it's literally fallen apart. Like, it's not bound by the cover, the actual pages anymore. It's that old. That's how much I've read this. So because of that, I'm really, really familiar with the beginning of Baroque works. I'm gonna say, I think I have a lot to say about One Piece. Favorite character is really difficult. There's so many good characters. I think the one that I always gravitate to the most is Chopper. I think personally, at least, his backstory resonates the most with me. I cry every single time. You know, that quote from the Quack Doctor. I'm sorry, I forget his name. Hiruluke. I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong. Dr. Hiruluke, he's up on top of Drum Island and he says, you know, when does a man die? It's when he's forgotten.
人はいつ死ぬと思う? 心臓をピストルで撃ち抜かれた時? 違う。不治の病に侵された時? 違う。猛毒キノコのスープを飲んだ時? 違う。人に忘れられた時さ。 俺が消えても俺の夢は叶う。病んだ国民の心もきっと救えるさ。
Oh, I mean, there's so much about Drum Island that I love. Like, I know it's not the most eventful, it's probably not the most exciting, and it's definitely not the grandest arc in the series, but it touches my heart so much. It resonates with me the most emotionally, and so yeah, it means a lot to me. And that's also why Chopper is my favorite character. His story and his dedication to, I guess, like growing up. Like his whole arc is, and his whole backstory is coming of age in the sense that, like, some of us unfortunately grow up because we go through tragedies that were caused by our own naivety or innocence. And I gotta say, that resonates with me a lot. Not saying that I've killed anyone as a kid with my own naivety or my own childlike innocence when I was younger, but you know, wanting to do the right thing and not knowing how to do it exactly, but just wanting to help, only for that to result in tragedy really hurts, and it's quite bad. So I love Drum Island, I love Chopper. Drum Island is probably not my favorite arc. I think my favorite arc, I'm really sorry, I'm probably going to give out a cop-out answer. Marineford is probably my favorite arc. There's a really big charm that I find in East Blue as well. East Blue is so much more enjoyable because you know what will happen to Luffy. You know that he will go on all of these adventures, he will meet these amazing friends, and that he ultimately will be very successful and very powerful. You know what's going to happen to him in the future, and so reading from the very beginning, once you know everything, is actually very fulfilling. But my favorite arc probably has to be Marineford, for very obvious reasons. It's very grand, and there's so many stakes involved, and like, I think the world building comes to a complete peak and depth at Marineford. You really get to see pirates from every other arc, every other corner of the world, all the admirals and the captains coming together in this one arc. Seeing them all sometimes in one splash page is just incredible. The fact that Luffy is not just fighting for his friends, his pirates, for world freedom, but also he's fighting to save his own brother. And it's just so powerful seeing Luffy try all his hardest. He's using every single ounce of strength and effort he can to save his brother. I won't spoil like any big parts, but if you know, you know what happens in something happens in Marineford, and if you know, you know. It's really tragic as well. Marineford is just, I think, really, it's just awesome. It really is awesome. Have I watched the anime? No, I have not, because of pacing issues. I know that Wano and recent episodes from Toei Animation look incredible. I have seen clips. I think they're worth it, but I don't think it's worth watching the anime because it's so slow, especially around like the very early parts before the time skip. The pacing is just completely awful, so I wouldn't recommend it, and some of the animation is dated. It can feel so slow watching. My favorite ability or devil fruit, that's really difficult. There are so many cool devil fruits that are awesome, and that makes it really hard to choose, but it would probably have to be Mr. Freeze wax fruit. Like, the ability to create anything, and it's just like hard as steel. Like, the only limit pretty much is like your imagination, and maybe like this, like within human constraints, within the human scale, you can pretty much, anything that you dream up, you can pretty much build. And I think that's sick. Like, the fact that Mr. Free in Little Garden like built that mech suit, that suit like looks so awesome. I reacted just like Luffy when he saw it. I was like, whoa! Oh my goodness. So that would probably be my favorite devil fruit. Where am I up to with One Piece? I mean, I have finished Wano. I haven't started Egghead. If you have any questions about any of the series that I talk about, or maybe even series that I don't have here, feel free to ask them in the comments below. You can ask me anything, basically. Anything that I talk about in this video or don't talk about regards to manga. Okay, One Piece, done. All right. Ooh. We're just gonna be moving this way, I think. Let's see. Next up, Solanin. Neo Asano is an incredible mangaka. I love the themes that he writes about. I haven't read everything by him. I have read, obviously, Solanin, Oyasumi Punpun, and The Girl by the Shore, and I did love all of them. I really loved all of them. To be honest, I did want to kill myself after I finished Oyasumi Punpun. It was a beautiful piece of art, but it caused me oh my goodness, so much heartache. I felt so much heartache and so much pain, emotional pain, just reading it. When I finished it, I did want to kill myself. It was awful. Anyways, Inio Asano, incredible mangaka, incredible artist, incredible storyteller. Yeah, I mean, if you haven't read Solanin, it's basically a guy and his girlfriend a couple years after college. The guy is in a band playing the guitarist, and the girl eventually, well, okay, I don't want to spoil it. I would recommend if you go into Solanin blind. That's how I went in. I have a couple rules when it comes to stuff that I physically buy in terms of media. One of them is, if I haven't read it before, I most likely will not buy it. I usually read stuff online before I physically buy it. I'll only physically buy something if I go, oh, it's a series that I really love and I want to physically own as like an archive, as almost like a backup. And there are some manga here that are exceptions, and Solanin's one of them. I picked this up blind, completely not knowing what it was about. And I'd recommend if you do the same, honestly. I'd only picked it up because I had read Oyasumi Punpun and A Girl by the Shore, or On the Shore, whatever the title's called. But I read both of those works, and I loved Inio Asano, and I had watched a couple of documentaries or videos on his whole process with creating manga, and I found that so fascinating. So yeah, I would recommend this completely blind. Go read it if you haven't. Incredible. Just really nice, honestly. Would I buy it again physically? I don't think I would personally, but mileage may vary, and it depends from person to person. I think it's really good, but if I had read this before, I probably wouldn't have bought it. But anyways, I still recommend you read it, even if you haven't read this, I still highly recommend it. Yeah. Next up, Akira. I have the first 3 volumes of Akira. I only have the first 3 volumes instead of all 6 because, look, I'm a broke boy. These volumes individually are actually really expensive. And you know what? Your boy has got bigger priorities than finishing off his Akira manga collection. Akira, I'm talking about the manga, by the way, not Akira as a whole. I'm not talking about the movie, I'm not talking about any spin-offs. I'm talking about specifically Akira, the manga. It is, I think, one of the best and greatest pieces of media to have ever been made. Again, I specified the manga and not the movie. I think the movie is honestly pretty overrated personally. And you can, oh, heresy. I can see the comments already trashing and flaming me for that. Like, how can you say that about the movie? The movie is so good and everything. You can't say that. It changed animation forever. I'm not refuting any facts that you might bring up about the film. It changed animation forever. The whole landscape of media changed because of that movie. And I'm not denying the cultural impact that Akira has. I'm not denying the impact it has had on animation worldwide in general. I'm not disputing also the fact that it made a significant impact on science fiction as a whole. And it basically started and popularized the cyberpunk genre. But once you read the manga, if you haven't already and you've only watched the movie, I think once you read the manga, you will understand how much the movie has missed out on and how shallow the movie really is. So an interesting piece of trivia that some people might not know is that if you have read manga and you have watched anime, this is like pretty much like otaku knowledge 101. But usually mangas are made first and then animes are an adaptation of manga. With Akira, both the film and the manga are both technically the true original editions because the movie was actually made in between volumes 3 and 4, which I don't have here. So it was made in between, in the middle of when the manga series was being written. And so in a weird way, both versions are true. They're pretty different from each other in terms of ending. And like, yeah, sure, the ending of the manga came after the movie, but the truest and purest way to experience Akira, I think, is through the manga. It goes into so much depth with each of the characters. Everything is fleshed out so much more. There are some major characters in the manga that were basically written out of the movie. They only have a couple of seconds of screen time, or maybe even less. They get extremely significantly minor roles in the film. If you haven't read Akira, I would highly recommend it, especially if you've only seen the film. Please read the manga. If you can, try to find color scans, as in like the color editions rather than the black and white. There's nothing wrong with the black and white. It's obviously like very nice, but if you do read, like, the color versions enhance it so much more. Also, I don't know where else to fit this in, so I'll just say this as the last thing. I really wanted Kanada's bike as a kid, and I remember spending like hours and hours for, like, there was a 6-month period where I spent hours each day trying to like research parts that I could buy in order to build Kanada's bike. I was gonna build like some kind of electric motorbike and make it look like Kanada's bike, but that never happened. I don't have any pictures because I never ended up buying the parts. I was like 13, 14 at the time. But yeah, there you go. A random fact about me that didn't fit anywhere else. Next up, we have Uzumaki, Junji Ito. What I would consider to be the quintessential horror manga in this day and age. Junji Ito is honestly, I think, the biggest Asian horror creator and storyteller and force within the horror genre. Have I said horror twice already? I forgot. Uzumaki is a staple in Japanese horror, and this is, I think, his most accessible work, and it's the one that everyone knows about. You have probably seen some kind of alt-goth girl wear some kind of graphic tee with an Uzumaki print on it. I'll show a couple on screen right now, and you'll probably go like, oh yeah, I have seen something like that. They're everywhere. Yeah, I've read Uzumaki God knows how many times, at least 20 times. And it's short and sweet. It's 12 chapters long. This copy that I have is really beautiful, hardcover. Pages are beautiful. I mean, Viz Media like are the goats when it comes to manga printing. Like it's just amazing print quality in terms of pages and arcs. And this was pretty, oh, this was not affordable. This is a little bit expensive, but I think it's worth it, especially considering that it's hardcover. Uzumaki is just amazing. Junji Ito is just a master of page turners. He knows how to build up a horror story. He knows the kind of pacing that you need to take. It's just, he's perfected it. Obviously, it took him a lot of years and a lot of experience to get to this. If you read something like Tomie, you can see bits of his, I guess, his knowledge. Like, you get to see a little bit of that in Tomie, but those were pretty much the first pieces of work that he did, and I don't think it's aged the best compared to Uzumaki. Like, you can definitely see that he was at the beginning of his career with Tomie. Tomie is great, don't get me wrong, but it's not necessarily like, you can see that Junji Ito was kind of still in his infancy as a mangaka, as a horror artist, as a storyteller when he was doing Tomie. Uzumaki is pretty much, I don't want to say it's perfect. There are some very silly, surreal moments, but I guess when it comes to, I've always felt like horror as a genre is very similar to comedy. It has the same kind of beats and pacing, as well as like you often find maybe the writing and to be quite similar, you know. Both genres rely on a build-up to something big. In comedy, that's the setup to a joke, and then the punchline, typically, in humor. You know, like, a lot of his works at times can be quite funny. And I have no idea if, I'm sure some of it is intentional, and some of it may be accidental, but his worst works are, at the very least, pretty good. They're not horrible, they're not bad, they're not boring to read. Everything in his body of works is good, at least. Uzumaki is, I think, a masterpiece. If you want to read Junji Ito, if you want to get into him, I would recommend Uzumaki first. This is the gateway drug to Japanese horror. I really would say that. I can't recommend this enough. This copy, amazing. When I say this copy, I mean this particular version that I have, the hardcover Viz Media one that contains all 12 chapters. Uzumaki is not my favorite Junji Ito work. That would probably have to go to maybe his adaptation of No Longer Human or Frankenstein. I love those two, but he has so many other good works too. Gyo is kind of it's a little bit silly, but it can be quite gross if you're really disgusted and disturbed by things like body horror. If you're not good with rotting corpses or rotting food, I would not recommend it. If you're not comfortable with things going down, with the idea of things going down people's throats or maybe intestinal things, I would not recommend Gyo. It's pretty surreal, it's pretty funny. Ramina, seeing Lovecraftian horror from a Japanese perspective is really interesting, and I think Junji Ito does that pretty well in the first half of Ramina. It gets, I think, a little... I think he takes it a bit... In the second half, he takes it a bit too seriously, and everything becomes really, really silly and very, very comical. I just personally could not take the second half of Ramina very seriously. But yeah. Yeah, this was awesome. This is awesome. Read it. Next up. A quick question before I start talking about this. Do you pronounce this as blam or blame? Those are the two ways I've seen people online pronounce it. For the sake of this video, I am not going to tell you how I actually pronounce it. For the sake of this video, I'm just going to pronounce it as blame, like as you do probably in English. Firstly, I want to thank PewDiePie. I want to thank Felix. Shout outs to Felix for recommending me the series. He, years ago, put out a video where he talked about his favorite manga, which is Blame. His favorite manga is apparently Blame, and he made a YouTube video about it. It was short, it was under 10 minutes, and he took it down from his channel. You can still find it online on YouTube. Tangent, but I was really disappointed to find that it wasn't available on his channel anymore, because it was a beautiful video. He talked about it very earnestly, and it was very, very different from his overhyped energy. And I think that was honestly the start of his maturity as not just a YouTuber, but also a person. He was able... I think it was a sign that he was more willing to talk about things that he actually loved, and he didn't have to worry about putting on a kind of persona, and he was able to act more like himself. But anyways, he talked about the series so beautifully in a way that I could never do unscripted. So if you are interested, the video is somewhere around YouTube. There's multiple people have reposted it since he took it down. Go watch that video. But I will say that that this series might be... I'm not going to say it's intimidating, but it will be very, very confusing. Because this is a sci-fi piece of work. There is no exposition to the characters or the world. Things are implied throughout the whole series, very, very briefly and subtly. And there is barely any dialogue. And when I say barely any dialogue, you're lucky to have like more than 10 lines in a chapter, like on average. 10 or 20, give or take. There really isn't that much dialogue. Most of this series is big splash panels and a lot of background art. Honestly, in any other piece of work, in any other genre done by any other artist, I think it would be very difficult to reach this kind of standard of storytelling and enjoyment and engagement. The mangaka, whose name I will not attempt to pronounce because my Japanese is horrible, he studied architecture in university, and you can really, really see that with his background art. I mean, most of the manga, again, is primarily background art. You see, like, basically the whole world, the landscape, for most of the time, and it just is, you're able to, there are so many moments of tranquility even in this scape. Should I try to explain the world and the world building? I don't know, man. Okay, I'll give it a shot. So basically, it takes place in this huge megastructure, and this megastructure is so huge that I think it's not officially said again. It's implied that this megastructure goes from the Earth. It has engulfed the Earth already, and it has also reached the moon. Like, the megastructure has not only engulfed the Earth, it's now become a bridge to the moon. People can actually walk from the Earth to the moon now via this megastructure. That's how big it is. It's called the city. Our main protagonist, Killy, is looking for something, and I think that's about all I'll give you, because number one, I think it's best if you go into this blind, and number two, even after rereading this multiple times, and as much as I love it, I still don't understand much of it, because nothing, and I mean literally almost nothing, is explained. A lot of it is implied, and if you really want to know the deep lore about this world and this series, you will have to do a lot of digging by yourself. Reading the manga, asking other people for opinions. Not much is given to you, and you have to really, really, really dig deep if you want to learn more. That being said, you can still enjoy it blind, but I would say just don't worry about things that aren't answered. Don't worry about not understanding anything. Just, I guess, enjoy it as you're reading it. As sometimes I do. It's really nice. It's so pretty. It's so pretty. And you may also notice that I still have not unwrapped this. I have not opened up the shrink wrapping. And that is because I am too scared to ruin this. Yeah, for years I wanted a physical copy, and it was also, anytime I did find one when I was younger, it was too expensive for me. But the minute I found a physical volume, I luckily did have the financial means to actually buy a volume. And here we are. Maybe I might open it if I ever get around to getting volume 2 physically. Who knows? We might not be getting volume 2 anytime soon. I don't know. But anyways, Blame. Incredible series. Read it and watch the video by PewDiePie. I'll link it down in the description. Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball. For the people who have only watched the anime, Dragon Ball, the manga, starts from OG Dragon Ball all the way up to the end of Dragon Ball Z. That is what the Dragon Ball manga encapsulates and covers in terms of story in regards to the anime arcs. So it goes all the way from Goku arriving on Earth to Majin Buu. Majin Buu is the last villain and is the last arc of the Dragon Ball manga. I believe from memory. If you asked me a couple years ago what I thought about Dragon Ball, I would have easily told you that it is my favorite shonen ever. It is, I think, very easily the greatest shonen ever. In terms of cultural impact, you can't deny the influence that Dragon Ball has had on not just Asian media, but also Western media. Akira Toriyama, I mean, outside of Dragon Ball 2, he was such a cultural force to be reckoned with. Dragon Ball, Sandland, Dr. Slump, and, Dragon Quest. And, it's also quite unfortunate that he passed away at a very young age, untimely. But, I'm grateful, as I presume many people are around the world. I'm very grateful for the works that he put out. They mean a lot to me, and they meant a lot to me when I was younger. And I'm sure they do for so many other people around the world, including you, possibly. Yeah, Dragon Ball is just an incredible series. If you were to ask me which half I prefer, the first or second half of the manga, I would definitely tell you that the first half I much more prefer. And that is because, personally, I think the amount of progression that Goku goes through as a kid is much more tangible than the power progressions he goes through as an adult after the time skip, after he becomes a teenager. The growth is just so satisfying to see. Again, it's just so tangible. It's satisfying. It is so satisfying to see Goku do his first Kamehameha. It is so satisfying to see Goku go into Kaioken for the first time. And it is incredible seeing Goku going into Super Saiyan for the first time, because these seem like massive leaps in competence, power, and just technique. And alongside to seeing Goku getting more and more powerful, we also see him becoming more and more mature as a person. I mean, actually, no, I don't know about that. He does stay he's pretty much mentally a kid, like throughout the whole series. But anyways, yes, Dragon Ball, incredible, incredible, incredible. And every time I read Dragon Ball, another thing to mention is that it's so easy to read through this. I'm not saying that the story is so incredible and he's able to make it interesting. I'm not talking about story beats, but even though that is the case with the story, I'm more so talking about the panel layouts. Well, in case I didn't mention it earlier with Uzumaki, Junji Ito is a master of the page turner. He knows how to build up to a moment of surprise. He knows how to build up to a moment that is a twist. He does that through his paneling, and Akira Toriyama understands panels very well, albeit in a different context, in the context of action and comedy. He makes it so readable, and there are YouTubers who have made videos on this topic before, like Super Eye Patch Wolf. You can check out his Dragon Ball video. He talks about it way more in depth and way better than I ever could. Yeah, John explains it way better than I can right now. Incredible, incredible, incredible. Again, if you have any questions about any of the series that I talk about, or just anything about manga, feel free to put a comment down below, question down below in the comments. Next up, we have a manga by the godfather of manga himself, Osamu Tezuka. This is Buddha. I came across this because I think one night I was on some kind of rabbit hole on my anime list. Yes, I know, terrible site. But regardless, I think it is a good way to get recommendations. So I think I was scrolling through the top rated manga, and I came across Phoenix, which was the last completed work that he ever did. At one point that was my favorite manga. I've since now changed my thoughts about that, but maybe I'll make a separate video on Phoenix later. Anyways, through Phoenix, I just looked through the rest of Tezuka's works, and I came across Buddha. The one gripe I had about Phoenix was that despite how powerful and how meaningful it was and how intellectually stimulating it was, it didn't feel grounded. At times, some of the stories felt very, very slapstick and not very serious whatsoever. And I wanted something that was a bit more grounded and a bit more serious, per se. Something a bit more existential. And I came across Buddha. This is a manga series that it covers the life of Buddha. And albeit very, very exaggerated for entertainment reasons. By the way, if you intend to read this series to educate yourself on Buddha and Buddhism, do not read it for this reason. Take everything here that is said here with a big pinch of salt and do your own research if you really want to know more. This is, again, a piece of entertainment. You read this to entertain yourself. Do not read this for self-education. It is an amazing read. It's very entertaining and somewhat informative. It's very powerful as well. I don't think it ever drags at any one point throughout its 8 volumes. Look, here's the thing. I'm Christian. I'm not Buddhist whatsoever, but I think the life of Buddha and his teachings are still something that you can learn from. I'm not Buddhist myself. I will say that his life and the things that he went through are really powerful, and even if you believe in a different religion like I do, I'm Christian, for example, I think there are a lot of takeaways, and there are a lot of things that you can still, there's a lot of things in this series that I think that can resonate with you still. Yeah, this is just really entertaining. It's very deep and entertaining throughout. There's a lot of action, there's a lot of comedy, and there's a lot of deep thoughts about what it means to live. Yeah, this is incredible. I hope it's not heresy to say that this is my favorite manga series. Look, if there was a manga about Jesus, I would probably say that was my favorite series. Yes, I do know that there is a manga series about Jesus, and there are manga adaptations of the Bible out there, but I don't think they're nearly as good as this. So yeah, I wish there was something like this, but for the Christian Bible. But anyways, regardless, amazing read. I have no trouble saying that this is probably my favorite manga series. Yeah, go read it if you haven't. Would highly recommend. Next up, I think this might be the coolest thing in my manga collection, and this is all of Death Note in one book. This is Death Note all-in-one edition. It comes in this hard box, which unfortunately has been a little bit dented and bent in the years that I've owned this. I watched the anime before I read the manga, and I will say that the manga is way, I'm not going to say way better. It is better than the anime for sure. The first half of the anime up until, sorry, spoilers, the anime up until L's death is peak. Like there's nothing wrong in my opinion with the first half of Death Note, the anime. I see no faults, and I think it's like a masterpiece. It's perfect. Nothing drags on. There aren't any plot holes or loops. Obviously, some funny memes have come out of it, but not because, like, those memes don't make fun of the actual, like, craft that has gone into the show, and it doesn't question anything. It's more so, they're just moments from the show that just happen to be funny. But like seriously, Death Note up until the point where L dies is like amazing. And the biggest complaint about the second half, after Light properly replaces L, the biggest complaint I've seen, and the one I feel the most, is that it's rushed. In the second half of the anime, there aren't nearly as many intellectual mind games, and so in that sense, it's less entertaining. The manga, however, does not compromise whatsoever throughout its whole 12-volume run. That's why the manga, I think, is just way, way, way better. Death Note is easily like one of the best modern manga series ever, if not one of the best. It's pretty much picture perfect throughout, I think. Again, like we're talking about the manga, it's like there's nothing at fault, and I don't think there's anything wrong with this. It's just a masterpiece. There are no cracks to be seen, at least personally, that's how I feel. Everything is perfect. And I think to have the entire series in one book is awesome too. Takes up less space, and it's limited edition too. What else can I really say about it? Favorite character. I'm just gonna say this without elaborating on it. L is way, way smarter than Light. That's all I'm gonna say. Okay, moving on. By the same two people who made Death Note, Bakuman. This is tonally extremely different. You cannot get further away from Death Note with this series. So this is a series about creating manga and what it's like being a mangaka. Submitting your series, becoming serialized, the work process month to month as a mangaka, how tough it is while managing your own personal life and your own relationships. That's what Bakuman is all about. It's really lighthearted, and it is very enjoyable to read. You could easily binge this manga in, I don't know, like you could easily binge it in 2-3 days. I mean, I read pretty quickly, so I was able to read it in about less than 12 hours, maybe 9, the whole series. I would highly recommend this if you really like sweet, light things, and if you're curious about manga and drawing and what it means to create, what it means to live. You know, like what's your purpose in life? Bakuman is about that. Probably not as heavy as I just made it out to be, but there are themes of those topics that I mentioned earlier in this. And I think, yeah, you'll get a lot out of the series if you are somewhat of a creative person like I am. A quick story, like I begged my parents to get me the first 4 volumes after One Piece. No, sorry, I got One Piece and Naruto. I've since lost my copies of Naruto, but I do have these, and I begged my parents to get me these 4, and after I finished these 4, I desperately searched online, like, oh, is there a way to read these online without having to pay? And guess what? That's how I found out about anime and manga pirating, because of Bakuman. I wanted to read more Bakuman, and I found out about anime piracy through that way. So yeah, I read the rest of the remaining 16 volumes online, and it was definitely worth it. In terms of the anime, I've watched a little bit of it, but I kind of stopped. It's 3 seasons long, and honestly, considering that. I mean, I feel like it's not fair for me to comment on the whole series because I haven't watched all of it. But 3 seasons for about 100 and I believe 70 chapters, well, 20 volumes, feels like a stretch. And it can, especially considering that the main romance in this series is dragged out like a lot. Like the big beats happen once every 5 volumes, I'd say on average, maybe a little bit less, but around that. So it can feel really slow. I feel like it would be very, very slow as you're watching the anime. Mind you, each of the seasons have 24 episodes each. So yeah, that's like 60. How many is that? No, I can't do math. 24 times 5, 72 episodes. That's 72 episodes for 20 volumes. That is a bit long for me. But anyways, yes, highly would recommend reading the manga. It's great. Last pile of books. I told you that I have a pretty modest collection compared to most people. But oh my goodness, this video is going to be way longer than any other video I've done, isn't it? Bleach. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. The only reason why I own the first 5 volumes of Bleach was because I was at a flea market, basically, at a charity flea market one day, and you know, like I came across like one vendor that was doing a deal, like I think a bag of books for something like $10. No, maybe even less, like free bucks. And so I got a bunch of books from that sale and these 5 volumes for $3. I think I got it was a big bag too. Like there was no size limit on how big the bag could be. I pretty much picked up any book that interested me and these 5 volumes of Bleach. Yes, I have read through all of them, but to be honest, I was not really interested in continuing it after I finished the 5th volume. So, mind you, I had never read Bleach before. I had heard about it, but I had never read it or experienced it. Reading these 5 volumes physically was my first time experiencing Bleach, and I have to say, after I finished the 5th volume, I was not really invested in the series, and I didn't really want to continue it. So, I haven't really experienced Bleach past volume 5, which is... What chapter is that? Yeah, I've not read past chapter 43 of Bleach. Yeah, it just hasn't interested me. I know the 1,000-Year War arc got animated recently. Well, like within the last 5 years. I know that was really popular, but I think it's only been popular because there was a huge hiatus between that arc and the previous arc of Bleach, and the animation quality for the 1,000-Year War arc is incredible. But I think the biggest gripe I have seen with Bleach as a whole, again, I can't speak on the whole series because I've only read these 5 volumes, but I can definitely relate to it. The biggest complaint I've seen about Bleach is that there is no sense of continuity with any of the arcs. Each of them feel enclosed and separate, and none of them seem to be consequential. Like, if an arc happens, whatever happens at the end of the arc does not carry over into the next part of the story, and that can feel pretty, I would imagine, like in any story, like especially if an arc was good. I think that just sucks for any story. Like, you know, like no consequences for any actions that you've done. That sounds really, really bad and really, really boring. And I kind of felt that within these 5 volumes of Bleach, the very, very, very first arc where Ichigo first becomes a soul eater? What? Yeah, and he uses his powers for the very first time. There's no repercussions for that. I realize that that's the very beginning, but if you look at other shonen series that came out around this time, like the other 2, when this used to be part of the big 3, if you look at Naruto and One Piece, everything in their backstory, their origin, is consequential. Everything that they do in their origin story carries over and is like, it's important. It's a building block for the rest of the series. It's something that the rest of the series is built on, whereas this one feels less consequential. Obviously, Ichigo becomes a Soul Reaper, but anything that he does at the end to protect people is not really fully... You know what? Like, I'm a yapper, bro. There's not much continuity in Bleach, and I think that's why I haven't read past it. Will I collect more? Probably not. Will I watch the anime? Probably not. I just have these for now, and I think it's cool to own, but I am not a big fan of Bleach. The art is incredible, I won't lie. The art is incredible. The story, I'm not so much a fan of. Anyway, moving on. Last series, Haru Ride, Blue Spring Ride. I'm a big fan of Orange, the anime. You know, I did the equivalent of AP Physics in high school, and I had some trouble, some gripes with the whole black hole in the middle of our Earth plot line at the end of Orange, you know, but I enjoyed Orange. And I was like, oh, like, I'm interested to see what else the mangaka of this series has done. And so I turned to Blue Spring Ride. Blue Spring Ride, to my belief, is pretty popular in Japan. It's gotten multiple live-action adaptations. It's got an anime adaptation, which I'm sure some of you or most of you would know of. I gotta be honest, as I haven't really finished it. I know what happens at the end, but I haven't finished the manga or the anime. I don't know if I should continue to finish it, because at least from what I've read, the synopsis seems pretty dry and not very interesting. It seems very soap opera-ish. I will say that if this is what high school girls have to go through or had to go through, if you were a girl and this is what you had to go through in high school, if this is the canon high school girl experience, I'm really sorry to hear that. That sounds horrible. The main character basically has fake friends all around her. At least her female friends are fake. And she has to put up this kind of persona of seeming like an airhead who likes eating in order to be liked by girls. And she's not like that whatsoever. And it just, that sounds like that sucks big time. Like having to pretend to be someone else, to be a clown for people in order to be liked, sounds horrible. And if that is the girl experience, if that is what girls have to do in order to make friends in most high schools, then that sucks. I'm really sorry. If that's not the case, then yay. I have no idea, because I have never been a girl, so I cannot relate. But yeah, I own these two because firstly, the art is really cute and pretty. I don't remember if the mangaka did My Little Monster, Toroni no Kaibutsu, I think that's the Japanese name. My Little Monster, the anime is really good. The mangas are really good. I remember the art style being quite similar, but again, most shoujo pieces of work are, they have similar art. Anyways, yes, will I continue it? Maybe. I have some interest, especially after talking about this series in this video. Would I recommend it? At least from what I've read and what I've read about the synopsis online, yes. If you do like romance, sure, go ahead. But if you like shoujo, yes, I would recommend it. But if you like shoujo, you have probably read this already. This is like an essential. All right, so that was my manga collection walkthrough. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you don't think my tastes are too stinky. I hope you think I'm based. The thing is, I have a couple of other things on my wish list that I intend to get. And there's some series, some of my favorite manga ever, I don't physically own either because they're not in print and they're really hard to find, or I just haven't bought them yet. Like for example, Oyasumi Punpun I would own physically, but at this point in my life, I have other things to prioritize when it comes to buying things. Let me know if you have any questions. If you want to ask me anything about manga, leave them in the comments down below. I'll definitely answer them. If you stuck around this long, I want to say thank you, especially after the super long hiatus. I've been doing other things. I started another channel about guitar. Yes, I do play guitar. I've been making some videos on guitar. You can go check that channel out down in the link below. And I will say, for the people who are expecting and still waiting on the Family Guy retrospective part 2, thank you for waiting, but I'm really sorry. I don't think that's going to be coming out anytime soon, if ever. That is because since I made the video, I've been watching a bunch of different other shows. I've been watching, I rewatched Family Guy about 3 times, and I came to the conclusion that it's just generally not very good, even past like the 2nd season. Thank you again if you've stuck around this long to the video. Thank you if you haven't unsubscribed yet. Thank you so much again for the support. This channel doesn't have a schedule. Yeah, just keep that in mind. You might have to wait long for the next video, and I'm sorry if you really want something next. It's just, I have a lot of other commitments that are more important right now. I mean, thank you for watching. Hope to catch you in the next one. The next one will probably be, again, a video like this where I go over a collection. Maybe I'll talk about something else. I am working on a series of videos that I intend to put out here that are, that take way less, that hopefully will take less effort than the effort I had to put in for the Family Guy video, something I can churn out and pump out a lot faster while still being of the same quality. yeah, so I guess be excited for that. Just don't expect it to come out anytime soon. Sorry again. I'll see you in the next video. See you.